So today we're going to talk about how do you build equity, and the best way is through home ownership. And I want you to hang tight with me through this video because I am going to delve into some of the myths about home ownership towards the end of the video. But right now I want to tell you a little fairy tale story. Back in 2016, I had a client who wanted to purchase their very first home. Now, they did not hardly have any money to put down, and so that just dispels the myth right there that you have to put 20% down to buy a house. No, you don't. This person got an FHA loan, and at the time you had to put down 3%. They didn't even have 3%, so they used a grant money from the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. At the time they gave $8,000, now it's up to $15,000. But that $8,000 covered their 3%, which was roughly about $5,000, and it covered a portion of their closing costs, and they were able to come up with the rest of the money. But they bought that townhouse for $160,000, 2-bedroom in Raleigh. Guess what? In 2022, 6 years later, now granted, we had gone through the housing boom of COVID, they sold that house for $316,000. That is $156,000 that they made in 6 years. Now, I'm not going to promise you that that's going to happen again. Again, that was a fairy tale story, but let's just use regular numbers as if the housing boom hadn't happened. Normally, a house appreciates about 3 to 5% a year. So if you take that $160,000 house that she bought and you keep it for 6 years, then in theory, had it been sold in 2022, it would have sold for around $202,000. And that is a difference of $42,000. Now, I don't know about you, but I think it'd be great to make some extra pocket change of $42,000 in 6 years. So that's what they did. And that is how she built that equity. Now, let's go a little further and talk about this. $42,000 was the difference between what she bought the house for and what the house sold for later. When the house was purchased in 2016, back then interest rates were around 4%. With putting 3% down, that would have made the mortgage around $155,000. So the house payment, once you tack on escrow and PMI and all that, it would have been around $1,200. Okay. Now, if you look and see how much your mortgage balance will come down over a period of 6 years, it's roughly going to come down. Even though she got the loan for $155,000, by the time 6 years go by and she's made that $1,200 payment, the mortgage is now down to $134,000. Okay, so now we have a house that's worth $202,000, but you only owe $134,000 on it. So now the $42,000 is actually a gain of $68,000 because 202 minus 134 is $68,000. Now, let's contrast that with if this person had taken that $1,200 a month and stayed in an apartment or rented somewhere for $1,200. So first of all, her payment stuck right around $1,200 for 6 years. Well, what I can guarantee you between 2016 and 2022 is that rental rates went up per month. So the same apartment that charges you $1,200 in 2016, probably about the time 2022 came around, that rent was probably up to about $1,500 or $1,600. And guess what? When this person moved out, they didn't get $68,000 because they were just paying rent to somebody else. And that leads me to my next set of home ownership myths. People say, well, I don't want to own a home because then I'm going to have to do maintenance on it. So keep in mind, $68,000 would have been made during a typical 6-year investment time. Let's just say you had to purchase a new HVAC unit. Let's budget $12,000 for that. Which is more, $68,000 or $12,000? $68,000. So if we subtract the cost of the HVAC unit off of the $68,000, that brings us down to $56,000. Okay. Now, let's just say that a new roof had to be put on during that time, and let's just go with the high number of 20,000. So that brings us down to 36,000. So let's just say that during that 6-year time period where appreciation was normal at 4%, and you had to purchase a new HVAC system and put on a new roof, which are typically your highest expenses, those costs minus the $68,000 amount of equity brings you down to $36,000. So when you walk away from that house, you have $36,000. Or when you walk away from renting and you didn't have to pay all that money for maintenance, what did you walk away with? Nothing. Which is more, $36,000 or nothing? $36,000 is still more. Now let's add in some more cost. You decide to sell your house, and there's realtor's compensation, there's attorney fees, there's state excise tax, there's all kinds of things. Well, roughly on a $202,000 house back in 2022, that would have equated to a little under $14,000. So let's subtract $14,000 from $36,000. That's going to give us $22,000. So after putting on a new roof, after fixing the HVAC system, and after all of the selling cost, this person would have theoretically walked away with $22,000. Now, which is more, $22,000 or nothing that you get when you rent? $22,000 is still a lot more than zero, y'all. So it still makes sense. If we can make it work, if we can talk to a lender and get you in a position where you are purchasing a home, let's do it. Because yes, there's cost involved, but the gain outweighs the cost that you have at the moment. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit further about why this is even more important to have equity besides just being able to make a quick profit. And then we're going to talk to you about what some of the things you can do with that equity. So I hope that this series is enlightening you and opening up your eyes to the world of real estate that is out there. And just know that I want to be your trusted real estate advisor. So please feel free to ask me any questions. I have a fantastic network of mortgage lenders that I work with who will put you into a good lending product just for you. All right, guys. And with that, I'll see you tomorrow for the next episode in our series on equity.